Hi, everybody, and welcome to Observing with Webb for July of 2019, where a high school astronomy teacher tells you what you're looking at, why it's so cool, and what you should check out later this month at night. July of 2019 is the month of Saturn and Jupiter this year. Both of them will be gracing the skies all night, easily visible with the naked eye, and looking even better when you have binoculars or a telescope. So let's get started by talking about the planets. Then we'll move on to some events, really just one and a half, and then we'll talk about the constellations. So what planets can you see this month? Well, Mercury? No. Venus? No. Mars? No. They're pretty much not visible, okay? Really all you got this month is Jupiter and Saturn. However, they are both looking really good and they're out there for most of the night. So let's go ahead and just take a look at Jupiter and Saturn. Now I have us on July 1st. You notice the west is over here. That's where sunset would be. Over here is the southeast. This is the south here. And so you notice Jupiter and Saturn are actually pretty much already up. In fact, this month it is Saturn's turn to go to opposition, which means it basically rises when the sun sets and sets when the sun rises, and it's up all night. Jupiter had that last month. But Jupiter... Let's focus on that first. It's already going to be high in the sky as dusk turns to night off in the southeast, southeast, and it will almost definitely be the first light that you see, depending on where you look. And so what's going to happen is throughout the night, Jupiter here, as I fast forward through the night, it's going to move toward the south, and then it's going to get a little lower, and it's eventually going to set in the southwest. Okay, by about 4 a.m. at the beginning of the month. Now let me back up. As we go back to where we were, okay, what's going to happen throughout the month is that it's going to start setting earlier and earlier and start higher and higher in the sky. See how it's starting higher and more toward the south? And by the end of the month, it's going to set at 2 a.m. So if you get up in the morning at the end of the month, you won't be able to see Jupiter unless you get up before 2 a.m. Okay? But Saturn right here throughout the entire month is trailing behind by about 30 degrees. And it's actually going to do that for the next 2 months at least as I started looking ahead. But they are 30 degrees apart and they're in a very cool portion of the sky, which I will get to a little bit later. Okay, but Saturn will rise just after sunset. It'll set right around sunrise. And yeah, we can see both of these really, really well throughout the month. Now, the other cool part here is that Saturn and Jupiter are in Sagittarius and Scorpius. So if I zoom in a little bit, you'll notice that there are all kinds of little M objects, what we call Messier objects. Those were the little things that this guy, Charles Messier, back in the day in France, he thought that they were comets, possibly, although he knew better. He knew that comets would move across the sky. And these did not, so they were comet-like objects. He didn't know what they were, but he chronicled them. He wrote them all down. And they're very cool to see, and the best part is that this is right in the Milky Way, right? This is the center of the Milky Way right here. Sagittarius on one side, Scorpius on the other. And so you get a real good view of lots of them. Now the issue is, this part of the sky with Saturn and Jupiter is also very low. And that means if you have a city to your south, it's going to be in a bit of light pollution here. And there's a lot of water vapor in the night sky in the summer, so that creates a little bit of an issue too. But if you get a very clear, dark sky, this is a beautiful part of the sky to look at. Okay? So Saturn and Jupiter are it for the planets for July. And with that, let's move on to the events.
And a bunch of other stuff.
Okay, now let's talk about the moon first. So the first week is the week of the new moon, which means that's the best time to look. We got the darkest skies. And then the first quarter moon is on the 9th. That means the right half is lit up and it's visible up until midnight. So you can still get some good dark skies after midnight. The full moon will be on the 16th of July, and that's visible the entire night. And then the last quarter moon will be on the 24th, which is visible from midnight all the way into the morning. Okay? So if you're looking for observing in the beginning of the night, the first week or two is good for you, and the last week as well. All right, so events. There's 1.5. Okay? You'll see why. Let's go to July 12th. Okay? July 12th. Let's go to, that's good, just about 10 p.m. On July 12th, you will see, with Sagittarius and Scorpius, you will see the moon, Jupiter, and Saturn making a really good lineup. And so you get 5 days of a great lineup of the moon, Jupiter, and Saturn. Now, Jupiter and Saturn will start each night in the south-southeast. They'll be about 30 degrees apart from each other. That's 3 fist widths, 1, 2, 3 apart, okay? And so on the first night, the moon is going to be up and to the right of Jupiter by about 10 degrees, or 1 fist width. Now the next night is going to travel to just about 3.5 degrees to the left and down a little bit of Jupiter. Then on the following night, the 14th, the moon is almost right in between the two. I think it's a little bit closer to Saturn, but you get a nice moon with the planet on each side. And then the 15th is when the moon gets really close to Saturn. In fact, it is 2.5 degrees to the right of Saturn that night. And on the 16th, the moon bids adieu to Jupiter and Saturn. It's on its way out, but you still get a really cool lineup for that night. Now, don't forget that these will be moving around throughout the night. I was just looking at 10 p.m. So what you'll notice is as time goes by, Saturn, Jupiter, and the moon sort of cross to the south and then toward the southwest. So go ahead and check that out. That was one event over 5 days. The half event is also on the 16th. It is a partial lunar eclipse, and you will be able to see this if you live in South America, Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia, but not North America. It's going to be daytime for us. Okay? However, all these other places you can see it, so if you live there, go ahead and Google it. They'll tell you more information than I could give you here. So that's it for the events for the month. So get out between the 12th and the 16th to see the moon, Jupiter, and Saturn all together.
Are there patterns in our skies? Are patterns only in our eyes?
All right, since July doesn't have too much going on, let's take a little more time with the constellations. So after dinner or before bed, we've got 2 sets of constellations that are out there for everybody to see. One is the spring constellations off toward the west. This is your last good month to see them. And the summer constellations, which are going to be more off to the east and straight above you, depending on the time of night. So anyway, let's start off with the spring constellations. You've got the Big Dipper, Bootes, Virgo, Corona Borealis, and Hercules. If you saw me last month, I went over this, so you can probably skip the next 3 minutes if you want to. But anyway, basically what you do is if you gaze toward the northwest and you look almost vertically up, you'll see the Big Dipper up there, okay? And actually, if you're looking to the northwest, it'll look a little more like this right here, where the handle's going up and to the left. But you find that, and if you can find the handle of the Big Dipper, what you do is you find that handle and you continue that curve and you go to Arcturus. In other words, you follow the arc to Arcturus, which is the brightest star in Bootes, or Bootes, the shepherd, right here. I think it looks more like a kite. But anyway, you can follow the arc to Arcturus, and then you can speed on to Spica, which is the brightest star in Virgo, right down here. Also up there is Corona Borealis. Again, this program doesn't do how I think of it in my head, but it's a nice little cup or C shape in the sky. And you also have Hercules up here. And Hercules is great because it is, see if I can zoom in on it, It's got a very great Hercules cluster right here that you can find with binoculars, maybe even catch with the naked eye. But binoculars and a telescope show lots and lots of stars in there. And it's actually a cluster of stars that's in our galaxy that's sort of not on the plane, but a little bit above the galaxy. And there's thousands of stars in there, which I believe are gravitationally bound. But anyway, that is the spring sky. And like I said, you notice that the summer sky is over here with Cygna, Lyra, and Aquila. Let me talk about those. I have Jupiter and Saturn down here for reference. So if you look at Jupiter and Saturn and the moon, you're going to look more up and to the left or more toward the east. And what you'll find is the brightest star up there is Lyra. The brightest star is Vega, which is the brightest star in Lyra and in the summer sky. Now, there's also a little parallelogram attached to that right down here. And then over here is Cygnus the Swan, where you get a really cool shape of a cross. But if you look a little bit further out, you can sort of see the wings there. And then you've got Aquila the Eagle down here. Now, these three stars often get confused for Orion's belt because, well, they're kind of the same distance apart, but they're not as close to a straight line as Orion's belt, and they're not quite evenly spaced like Orion's belt. So, and it's also part of this big diamond shape right here, and it doesn't have the rest of Orion. But anyway, use a star map, or this, to see that Sagitta, the arrow, is right in between Aquila and Cygnus. And Delphinus the dolphin is also really nice. Don't forget, though, that up here we have the summer triangle. And the summer triangle is an asterism, which is a shape that's recognizable that is not an official constellation. But the summer triangle is the three brightest stars in the summer sky. So even if you are in Wildwood, where there's lights abound, lights everywhere, you can still see the summer triangle, even if you can't see all of those constellations' stars. Lastly, if you get up before work, I'm just going to take a quick little look at Pegasus and Andromeda. Okay? Now, let's go a little bit later into the night. There we go, about 4 a.m. And let's say we look pretty much south. What do we see? Oh, yeah, there we go. We've got the great big square of Pegasus right there. And it's almost a perfect square. In fact, this one is just a little bit off and to the left. But you also notice up here, see these two curves. The way I tried to explain it is if you look to the south and most of the way up, you'll find Pegasus, and then you'll see 1, 2, 3 pairs of stars. Get a little bit closer. 3 pairs of stars that sort of move away from Pegasus. And these 3 sets of stars sort of make Andromeda right here, which is just a really cool curve in the night sky. Now, if you're really good and you have some time, take that second pair of stars and you make a line between the two of them. And then go about that same distance in toward the curve, and you should be able to find the Andromeda galaxy right there. Okay? Now, here's what's awesome about the Andromeda galaxy. Okay? It'll just be a small, faint fuzzy to your naked eye. But you are looking at an entirely different galaxy than the Milky Way. It is 2.9 billion light years away, which means that light took 2.9 billion years to get to your eye, which means you're looking at that galaxy as it was 2.9 billion years ago. Not now, about 3 billion years ago. Okay. Also, that spreads out about 150,000 light years across. So light, fastest thing we know, goes around the Earth 8 times in a minute, or 8 times in a second, if it could go around like that. It would take that 150,000 years to go from one end to the other. That's what you're looking at up there. So anyway, that is it for the month of July. I hope you really have a good 4th of July weekend or week, whatever you want to do with it. See some fireworks, but don't forget, when you're watching those fireworks, check out Jupiter and Saturn. They are looking phenomenal. And really, I just want to wish you very clear, dark skies for the month of July.